Thank you very much, Glenn, for sharing that insight all the way from Riga. Now we move on. Arriving at the European Political Community meeting in Copenhagen, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has spoken about Europe's move towards a more hardline policy of immigration. Let's listen in.
Well, yes, we're certainly discussing illegal migration and looking at what further options we can take together. Obviously, I've always argued that working with other countries is always a stronger response. So we're looking at a number of options there. There's a big appetite for it, a number of countries wanting to work with us on what more we can do. So we'll be looking at that. There is also then obviously the question of Ukraine and how we put in more support for Ukraine, put pressure on Putin. So it'll really be migration and Ukraine will be the two dominant issues in the discussion.
This comes as the UK recently set out plans to tighten rules for migrants seeking indefinite leave to remain. According to the British Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, migrants will have to prove that they are contributing to society to earn the right to remain in the UK. Under the proposals, illegal migrants will have to learn English to a high standard, have a clean criminal record, and volunteer in their community to be granted permanent settlement status in the UK. Now we move on. US President Donald Trump has said that soybeans will be a key topic when he meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in 4 weeks. President Trump has accused China of deliberately holding back purchases of American soy for negotiation purposes, leaving US farmers with billions in lost sales. Let's listen in.
And we're going to take some of that tariff money that we made, we're going to give it to our farmers, who are for a little while going to be hurt until it kicks in, the tariffs kick into their benefit. So we're going to make sure that our farmers are in great shape because we're taking in a lot of money. We're finding, the other day, it was very interesting, they found $31 billion. They said, sir, we found 31. I said, you mean positively, right? They said, yeah, 31 million more than we knew. You're right, sir, it came from the tariffs. We've never seen it.
With China buying elsewhere, US farmers have suffered a lot. Let's listen in to.
China has been our #1 customer for soybeans, and I don't know exactly when you start counting that, but let's say the last, I'll say 20 years, I mean a significant portion of our soybeans have gone to China. And when we started disrupting international trade, they kind of started looking for alternate sources. And so really, let's say the last 7 or 8 years, they've really been leaning harder and harder on South America to supply their soybeans. As far as I know, for the 2025 crop, they've bought 0 US soybeans. So yeah, China is definitely going elsewhere to the extent that they can. You know, I assume that at some point they'll buy some US soybeans, but so far it's a goose egg for the 25 crop.
Farmers in top producing states like Illinois are harvesting autumn crops but face uncertainty as their biggest customer looks elsewhere. Let's listen into one such Illinois farmer who's struggling to soy sales. The shift comes as the U.S. provides financial support to Argentina, including a $20 billion currency swap to stabilize its economy. Meanwhile, U.S. officials have indicated there is no timeline for China to resume purchases, emphasizing the need to keep pressure while supporting domestic farmers through the trade tensions. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how do you think this ongoing trade tensions over soybeans between U.S. and China could affect their president's upcoming meeting?
In case of the U.S. tariff on China, is a little bit different with tariff on other countries. But so that's why the U.S. tariff on China is related with not only just the trade between U.S. and China, but also the who will lead the world is a matter. So that's why this is not just a business deal between two countries. But at the same time, it is true that U.S. tariff on China is postponed mainly, so until the November. And just before the November, there is a meeting between the U.S. president and the Chinese president. So that's why the summit will be decisive to deal related with this issue just now. So that's why this is October, the next month is November. This means this is the last chance to negotiate detail of this deal. So soybeans is one of the card, but and the other card is also there. And so President Trump remark about soybeans means that negotiation is now stepping up and very hard now, I think. But at the same time, this soybeans indicated that the U.S.-China negotiation is not just a business deal, because since the first Trump administration, the soybeans-related issue has risen again and again between U.S. and China, and China is changed its source of the soybeans. So now the Brazil, the Argentina are main source instead of the soybeans from the United States. And that's why even if the Trump administration and President Xi they talk about soybeans, indeed, under the current situation, China do not need to import so much. So this soybeans is just purely the card, the negotiation between two countries, but the needs itself is not so imminent and high for China. So, but view from the President Trump, the next year there is a midterm election. So even if the decoupling between US and China is not a problem for the United States in the long run, for the midterm elections, temporarily he needs support from agriculture sectors. So farmer support is important. So that's why just now he wants to deal. So in this case, even if the long run the U.S. is decoupling with China, and China also decoupling with the United States, they want United States side want to deal just now, and the China side also postponed this battle between U.S. and China. So that they also want to deal. So that's why in the November they try to seek a deal. So that is the reason that this soybeans issue is rising just now.
And what are we to make of President Trump's accusation that China is using soybean purchases as a negotiation tactic?
Because just before the midterm elections, they need United States president and Republicans need support from the U.S. farmers. So in this case, if China has already stopped the import from the United States in June and July. So that's why this is a card to making the pressure towards the United States. If China will not buy the soybeans from the United States, U.S. farmer will be upset and ask the U.S. government to persuade China to import. So that's why the U.S. president need to reply the supporter for him. This is their farmers, they are selling the soybeans. So that's why even if in the long run, yes, the United States do not need the Chinese market, but in the short term, before the next midterm elections, he needs a buyer who name is China.
And in your opinion, how important do you think it is for the U.S. and China to resolve trade issues like these?
In the long run, this is not a big problem, but in the short term, he need, because of the election, I said. So for the United States, election is matter. For China, postponing the U.S.-China competition is matter. So supporting Russia and the problem in the Europe is one of the method. Another method is this negotiation, business negotiation between two countries. So that's why postponing the U.S. pressure towards China is beneficial for China. So that's why the U.S. want to deal just now, And the China side also want to deal with the United States just now. That's why they are negotiating. But at the same time, temporarily they need, both US and China need to deal. But in the long run, they are competing the influence in the worldwide, and who leads the world is the matter. So that's why this is a strategic competition. So in this case, decouple is, of course, one of the methods to reach or prepare the confrontation between the US and China. So that's why in the long run, they do not need to deal. But in the short term, they need to deal. That is the current situation, I think.
Right. With that, I would like to thank our guest, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now, a Palestinian mother,